Welcome to Beyond Bacalhau, Cracking the Portuguese Business Code by Raquel Batista. So, first of all, some important details about the podcast. It's going to be more or less 30 minutes because I think that's the ideal timeline for people to really engage in content and not sleep when they're listening to something a bit complex. I decided that I was going to make it available every Tuesdays at 8 a.m. I wanted to give you a rundown about all the subjects that we will be covering, so that you know if this is something that may interest you or not, or if there's a specific topic that it is more useful to you. So, of course, in all my socials before the coming out of the episode, I will let you know what the theme is or who the guest is. And of course, if you have anything, any subject, any doubt, anything that you would like us to cover, it's very simple. So just reach out, communicate through socials, through email, whatever it is, and let us know, because I will try my best to explore that subject so that you can have a safe and prosper business here in Portugal. So one of the things that I think should be in the beginnings of this podcast is, of course, the basic charges for running a business in Portugal. And this because there's a lot of differences between the taxation and the charges that are weighing upon a business here in Portugal. There's social security, there's taxes, there's insurances, there's medical exams that you have to know, so labor, medicine, and there's a lot of different things that can make or break business if you don't consider them. So basically, I will do a rundown of all the charges, so taxes and costs that you have to consider for your future business. And this is something that you really want to know if you want to have, clarity, and you have to include this in your business case, in your business plan, because this is a given. There's no way around it. You are going to pay taxes and you are going to pay social security. So you better prepare for it. Okay. The other thing that I think is important, and yes, I am looking down because I don't have the memory to know everything that I need to say, is the basic elements to start a company. So what are the basic pieces that we need to create a company? And this is something that I do when I create companies for my clients. Is I'll give them a form to fill with all the information that I need, but then I go over every item on the list, because it's important to know why we need that information, and why that information is required, whether it is beneficial ownership, whether it is the share capital, the managers, whatever it is. People need to know where that information is going and why that information is relevant. And within each one of those elements, there are things to consider. So, for instance, the name, something that may look as simple or appear simple as the name of the company, it's not as simple, because there are three ways that you can choose a name for the company. I won't give away much of the content. And some ways are make the process of authorization faster than others. I don't want to give any spoilers away again, but there is a lot to say when it comes to naming your company. And of course, you have to know that one thing is the name of your company, and another completely different thing is your brand name. So, in the end, the name of your company is relatively indifferent. Okay, so but we have to go over all the items that we need in every information that we need to create a company. So all the things that are required. Then one of the hot topics, freelancing versus company. So a lot of you that are coming have no idea what you should choose in terms of type of business. So, of course, you know that you can go the freelancer route, which is really not create an autonomous body for the business, that is to say, a company, but you can just register as a freelancer in the tax office, and that way all the income goes into your personal income. You get taxed on IRS, so personal income tax. But the other way to go about creating a business in Portugal is in fact to create a company. So these are the two ways that you can create a business in Portugal. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both models. Of course, when we're talking about companies, there are several different types of companies. When it comes to freelancers, there's also like a subtype that we will explore, but there's a lot more variation when it comes to companies. And although the basic decision between company and freelancer may be fundamented on the same things, the fact is that we still need to consider different types of companies. So we will explore all of that in that episode. We will go through through the differences. We will go through the advantages. Believe me, sometimes the idea that comes to mind faster is not the best one, because it really depends on the circumstances of each one. It depends also if you want to go into a business solo or with other persons. So there's a lot to consider there. Then I would also like to tell you a little bit about the Portuguese business culture. And this is a subject that I talk a lot about in my talks and in my monthly residency in the Good Morning Portugal show, because it may not seem that it is important, but it is one of the most fundamental things to consider when you are creating a business here, because the Portuguese culture looks at a business in a very particular way and in a very different way than, say, the United States or the UK or probably other countries. So it has to do with the fact that we are a very ancient country. We have business that are over 500 years old, okay? And a lot of them 200 years old, 100 years old. So as you can see, the longevity of these businesses kind of hints in the sense that the way that we go about business and we approach business is almost like a family business that you want to pass from generation to generation, envisioning, of course, generational wealth and making our kids' life easier and experience, of course. So there's a very specific way of having a business here in Portugal. A lot of things to consider, even when you're negotiating with someone in Portugal. Something as simple as talking about money, talking about fees, it's very different. Something like service levels, very different when it comes to Portugal. And I'm sorry to say so, but it's reality and we have to face it as such. So if you are very used to have like an instant service answer, that is not going to happen here in Portugal. And you have to take that into account when it comes to knowing what you're getting into. Another wonderful topic is whether or not it is best to buy an already up and running business or if it's better to create one from scratch. So it is possible, of course, to buy an up and running business, and that's how my business brokerage part of the business came to be, because people started asking help to sell their businesses or to buy businesses because they were coming over and they really didn't want to start something from scratch. They wanted to start the activity right away. And so, of course, when you buy a business or there's a trespass or something like that, and we will go over all of those things. For instance, in terms, if you have a restaurant, it's much easier if you buy something that already has structure, already has the machines, already has the personnel, already has clientele, all of that. And it's much easier to pick that up and start the activity right away than scout for locations, go through the HR to hire people, rents, buying or not. So it can be a hassle to particularly some types of businesses. Consultancy business, not that much because they're very easy to create right off the bat. They don't need a lot of material, but there are certain businesses that are very prone to getting bought and sold. And so we are going to talk about that. We are also going to talk about what is business consultancy and why do people need a business consultant. And this is something that I, to be honest, didn't even know that I could do until I started doing it, because I guess all of my experience from my background came flashing in when someone asked for help with their company. So business consultancy it's a range of things. It can be like you get into a company, you go over the financials, the structures, the legal, the accountant, the marketing, the personnel, whatever it is, and you try to optimize all of those things. Or it can be something more different, like, okay, this is up and running, this is being profitable, but we need to get a step further and we need to professionalize the management, because a lot of people get into the business because they have great knowledge in certain areas, but that doesn't mean that that person can manage a company properly. So it doesn't mean that that person is a good manager. And so a lot of times you see business owners that are great creative people, have great ideas, but then their businesses fall into the ground because they don't know the first thing about business, about cash flow, about profit, about any of that. And so all of those components are very important when you have a business, because as I say, you can have great ideas, but if you don't have a solid foundation and if you don't give a solid foundation to these people, it's a shame to not profit on those ideas that could make them a lot of money, just because, in terms of formality or operation wise, they don't have what it takes to have a structure so that they can grow. So business consultancy is a lot about that, and I am sure that we will go to make a lot of other episodes on business consultancy, because there's a world to talk about. There's a world to talk about when it comes to better managing, to optimizing something as simple as meetings. And coming from a business background, I will tell you, I am like the first person hating meetings, because we used to have like 30 people in the meetings. It was like at the end of that hour, we hadn't gone through anything, we hadn't advanced on anything, we hadn't decided anything. So there is a proper way to conduct a meeting and to prepare a meeting, and there is a crappy way to do that. And so there's a lot of time that you can waste if you don't know how to conduct or prepare or even close a proper meeting. And as we all know, time is money. And so half an hour of an unuseful meeting is half an hour of time that you could be spent thinking about business or bringing clients in. So it's very important to consider that. Now, another topic that I really want to approach is cost optimization, because this is a very important part in terms of making your business solid and making it possible to thrive and to be a profitable business. So sometimes people are not aware of all the tools that exist to optimize a business, whether it is the way that you go about your taxes, whether it is deductions that you are not aware of, grants, European grants that you can use and that you don't know, even payments that you can be making through the company. And if you're not, you're wasting money because you're wasting tax benefits when it comes to Social Security and IRS. So there's a lot of ways that you can optimize the turnover of your company. And so that's something that we will also approach because I think that is very necessary. And finally, business strategy. So, business strategy is something that can be applied when you don't have a business, when you already have a business and you want to expand or grow, or if you're an investor, okay, and you want to build what it's now called a portfolio life. You can have a number of different businesses in different areas, but you need strategies. You need a path forward. You need to think about your business. And one of the things that people nowadays don't do, unfortunately, is save a time in their week or in their day to think about their business. And the best way to do that is just to get out of the office or the home office or whatever it is and take a walk. That's how sometimes the great ideas come about. So sometimes that's what I do when I go to the gym. I just come walking back home because the walking, in terms of the way that your body works, is a very nice way to make your brain work really well. Besides, there's no other factors that will steal your attention. There's no TV, no other person that you need to communicate with. So that's a nice idea when you want to have great ideas for your business. But business strategy is absolutely an integral part of any business that grows. And you can see we have historical examples of that, like Kodak and other companies that didn't open their eyes when the market started to shift. And the old saying, adapt or die, is very, very true. And still to this day, I think there are a lot of businesses that haven't woken up about where they are. And they really should start to think about their businesses out of the box, because especially now, because of the speed of technology and because of the multiplying factor of how the new things are coming up, it is essential to think about your business in a future perspective. Is it going to be useful in the future? Is it going to be replaceable? And if it is, you really have to consider something else, because in the next 2 years, 3, 5 years, this is going to be a completely different ecosystem. So that is also something that I think we need to talk about. And my guests. I am thinking about doing a podcast with the theme and then another one with the guest and theme, guest, theme, guest, because it's a nice way to make it more dynamic, to bring more information to you, and to also not be so technical that it puts you off, or that you think that you have to be in a given state of mind to understand everything. Well, first of all, I want this podcast to make everything simple. And as I said before, you know what you're doing when you can explain it to a 4-year old. So I am going to try to make everything very simple. And once you realize the structure and once you understand the reasoning behind everything, not only do you understand it, you will fix it in your mind, you will remember, and it will become an integral part of your philosophy when you're doing business. But my guests are going to be, I would say most of them actually are my clients, funny enough. Others are partners that I work with or people that I've encountered that are really great and phenomenal, and I think have a lot to say and a lot to contribute, and maybe are useful to your business. So I want to bring all of those. I will let you know, no spoilers, but I will progressively let you know who these guests are. I haven't talked to everyone yet. So if anyone out there is thinking that, yeah, why didn't she ask me yet? There's still time, because I've talked to about 2, 3 people. I have a 10 guest list. Okay. So don't worry. I'm sure that I'm considering you. I just haven't gone around to talk to you. So, all in all, these are the plans for this podcast. I hope that you find it useful and that it can bring some knowledge to you. And another thing that I think is important is to explain you the background, how I got here, why am I doing this, and how this all started. Well, I am a legal counsel, so I have a law degree. I started my journey in Ernst and Young actually as a tax advisor in compliance department, and I hated it. Sorry. So I left. Thank God, I already had another invitation at to work with CMVM, which is like the SEC in Portugal, so the regulatory authority for securities market. And so I worked there for 4 years. I loved it, different sectors, asset management, even the investigation department, which was really cool, and mediation. So a lot of experience there. And then I got invited to a private banking where I spent the next 18 years of my career, moving from different factories within the group, like insurances and asset managers, and then to the bank itself, always in the legal or compliance departments. Then something that is curious that some people ask me is, so why are you not a lawyer? Because I know that I would get kicked out the first day that I would walk into a court of law. Okay, so I have no patience for bureaucracy. I have no patience for, oh, Mr. Attorney and the judge and all of those formalities. So I had that self awareness of knowing that that was not something that I should go because I wouldn't be good at it. So I always wanted to be in the corporate legal advising and counseling, and that's how I did. But eventually, sort of started getting disconnected and my soul wasn't in it anymore. Things were changing and that kind of took the fun aspect and the challenge out of the equation. And then, if you don't know why you are working, it's kind of difficult to get up in the morning every day. And so I started getting more and more disconnected with it. And finally, when I had my third daughter, I knew, and after COVID, I think all of us started to rethink our lives and the way that we spend our time. I'm not getting any younger. And I started to think that I did not want to continue in that rat race of it wasn't even 9 to 5, it was like 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. because I had a really long commute. I used to waste 3 hours of my day every day just to come and go to work. Suddenly, when remote work came about, it was much better. It certainly was. But then those things that come with working in big organizations, like things that get done but you don't really see the sense of it, completely useless things, controls, or just files of people just getting their checks done or stamping things. And I started to know think about that there was a huge percentage of things that I really didn't see the point of, and I really didn't want to do anymore. So, I up and left. And I am pretty sure that everybody thought that I was having a huge hormonal problem, but I don't think I was. And as I always say, I think I made the most insane decision of my life because I didn't know it then. It was crazy at the time. I was giving up an 18-year career, you know. It was a safe job, a very well-paid job, a very, well considered job. A lot of people wanted to be where I was. It was a status kind of position. It was a very important position. Not a lot of people in the country with that position, but it just wasn't what I wanted for me anymore. I didn't see myself. It didn't, those materialistic things and positions and status things. I couldn't care less about those things. I'm a very informal person. And so it just wasn't working for me anymore. And so I left. But of course, then what the hell am I going to do? Because I thought that I was in a very niched industry because, legal counseling in banking, you either go to other banks or there's not a lot of things that you can do in the private sector other than be continue in the industry. So I had a couple of friends that were having lunch over that, and they're expats. They're actually American or part Portuguese, part American. And they said, "Are you crazy? You are sitting on a gold mine because you have the legal knowledge, you have the professional experience in banking, in insurance, in business, and you don't have the language barrier because you're bilingual." And it's funny because I always, in the back of my mind, I've always thought about, I am bilingual, but I'm not using this. And I can speak more than English, than one language. I can speak a lot of other languages, but I wasn't using this fluency that I have in English that is very rare for anyone to have. A lot of Portuguese can speak English. That's not difficult for us, but to have this kind of fluency, that's a bit more rare. And when it comes to business things and legal things and technicalities, you really need communication to not have any barriers. So you need the message to get across clearly. And so you need someone fluent. And so they said, so you have all of that. You can do consultancy to all the expats coming in that want to create their businesses or that they need advice or whatever it is. And so that's how Lighthouse Consulting started. And it actually started with not even me truly believing in myself that this could be a thing. And we'll talk about this, but to all the introverts out there and to all the people that are not comfortable speaking to other people as I was, now I have my own business and now I have to get to my own clients and now there's no backup, it's me. And so it was quite a change, but I think there's always a percentage of not knowing that is what gets you to get the move. Because if you knew all of the things that you don't know when you're starting, you probably wouldn't start. So ignorance is bliss at that point in time when you start a business in a way, I guess. And I ended up learning a lot about myself, about I kicked imposter syndrome in the butt. I still struggle, sometimes it wins, but I am more and more convinced that we really can do anything that we set out to do if you want to. But you really need to take that first step because if you keep procrastinating, you'll never get anything done. And it's never going to be perfect. So you just have to start, and no one is going to be there looking at every detail and condemning you and accusing you, oh, well, this wasn't perfect. I think people appreciate more the content than the fact that I have a great editing and conditions and all of that. So I think people need the content more than they need the perfection of the way that the content is brought to them. So in conclusion, I wanted to welcome you all on board. I would like to ask all of you to give me any ideas, any topics that you'd like me to talk about, people that you'd like me to talk with. You have to have their contact, by the way. But I hope that this is useful. I hope that you get a kick out of it. I hope that you have fun because I cannot live my life without a huge sense of humor. So you'll see that I'm a clown sometimes. And as much as these things are important and difficult and technical, without a bit of humor and lightheartedness, it's very tough to work. So I can guarantee that sometimes I will be a clown or I will be the first one to put out a joke or two. And thank you for believing in me. Okay? Mwah.